The Canadian landscape is currently a theater of atmospheric war, a sprawling and chaotic map where three distinct and powerful weather systems are converging to create a Saturday that will be remembered as one of the most volatile of the 2026 season. In Quebec, the air is thick with the scent of an impending ice storm, a heavy and silent threat that is currently creeping across the St. Lawrence Valley and threatening to encase the province's critical infrastructure in a thick, destructive layer of glaze. This is not just a standard winter freezing, this is a high-impact moisture surge where a layer of warm, saturated air is overriding a stubborn Arctic surface high, creating a textbook scenario for prolonged freezing rain that has already grounded hundreds of flights in Montreal and Quebec City. As the thermometer hovers precariously at -1 degree Celsius, every drop of rain that hits the ground, the power lines, or the windshields of those brave enough to be on the roads is instantly flash freezing into a jagged crystalline armor. The weight of this ice is the primary concern for Hydro-Quebec crews who are already on high alert, because as the wind gusts begin to pick up tonight, the torque applied to ice-laden tree branches will inevitably lead to widespread power failures and a logistical nightmare for emergency responders trying to navigate the slick, treacherous terrain. This is a day where the daily forecast for Quebec isn't just a list of temperatures, but a warning of a looming blackout and a total halt to the rhythmic pulse of the province's urban centers. Moving westward into the heart of the prairies, Alberta is locked in a starkly different but equally dangerous reality. As the province experiences the final burst of winter, a deep-seated Arctic freeze that has sent temperatures plummeting toward the -20-degree mark. The air in Calgary and Edmonton today carries a razor-sharp edge, a biting wind chill that makes any exposed skin a liability within minutes, as a high-pressure system from the North Pole settles in for one last stand before the predicted spring thaw. This isn't just about the cold, however, as a quick-moving clipper system is dragging a band of fine, crystalline snow across the QEII highway, where even a few centimeters of accumulation are being whipped into a frenzy by 30-kilometer-per-hour winds. This is creating localized whiteout conditions that turn a routine drive into a disorienting and life-threatening ordeal as the horizon disappears into a blur of gray and white. Albertans are used to the cold, but the timing of this snap, coming just as many were preparing for the spring transition, makes it a psychological and physical test of endurance, with the data suggesting that while a massive warming trend is on the horizon for next week, today is a day of absolute winter survival where the primary goal is simply keeping the heat on and the vehicles off the icy, wind-swept roads. The most dramatic shift, however, is occurring on the Pacific coast, where British Columbia is currently being slammed by a massive atmospheric river, a literal river in the sky that is transporting vast amounts of tropical moisture directly into the rugged terrain of the coast mountains. Vancouver and the surrounding lower mainland are currently under a deluge that feels more like a tropical monsoon than a Canadian March, with rainfall totals expected to reach nearly 200 millimeters in the high elevation zones like Howe Sound and the Fraser Valley. This massive influx of warm water is not just a flooding threat from the sky, it is a thermal assault on the existing snowpack, causing a rapid and dangerous melt that is sending torrents of water into river systems that are already at capacity. The risk of landslides and washouts on the sea-to-sky highway is reaching a critical threshold, and emergency management officials are issuing urgent code red flood watches as the ground becomes saturated beyond its ability to absorb. The sheer volume of water is staggering, and as the storm's core moves inland, the threat of high-altitude avalanches increases as the heavy rain adds unbearable weight to the unstable winter snow layers. This Saturday is a study in Canadian extremes, a day where one province is freezing solid, another is shivering in the deep Arctic void, and the third is quite literally being washed away by a Pacific surge. There is no middle ground in the atmosphere today. The jet stream is buckled in such a way that it is funneling these distinct crises into a simultaneous national emergency that tests the limits of our infrastructure from coast to coast. In Quebec, the sound of snapping branches will be the soundtrack of the night. In Alberta, the silence of the deep freeze will dominate the landscape, and in British Columbia, the roar of rising rivers will serve as a constant reminder of the raw power of a changing climate. As these systems continue to evolve, The daily forecast remains your most critical tool for navigating a landscape that is being reshaped by wind, water, and ice. We are urging all Canadians in these affected zones to prioritize safety over schedule, to respect the technical alerts being issued by meteorological centers, and to recognize that when nature decides to move with this much energy, the only logical response is to stay inside and wait for the storm to break. The data we are seeing on the radar is historic, the pressure gradients are extreme, and the impact on our daily lives is unavoidable as we battle through this Saturday, March 14th, 2026, a day defined by the relentless power of the Canadian elements. Stay tuned as we continue to monitor the progression of the Quebec ice shield, the Alberta deep freeze, and the BC atmospheric river, providing the minute-by-minute analysis you need to protect your family and your property from a Saturday that has pushed our weather systems to the absolute edge. Whether you are dealing with the weight of the ice in the east or the rush of the water in the west, remember that information is your shield. And we will be here to guide you through every surge, every gust, and every drop of this national weather event.